Hey guys, in the video that I'm doing today, I want to do an experiment with this stuff. It's Armor All Wheel Protectant. And let me give you a little bit of background first on what I want to do here. So the wheels on my car here are really tough to clean because there's just a lot of spokes. It takes forever to clean the wheels. And it's also got really big disc brakes and pretty fat tires, so it kicks up just a lot of brake dust. And typically these wheels need cleaning after only maybe 50 to 75 miles of driving. And it became a really big chore for me. So I discovered this stuff and decided to try it out about a year or so ago. And it worked really, really well for me. So I wanted to do a test and make sure it wasn't just my imagination. So what I'm going to do today is I've already cleaned all four wheels in the car. They're as clean as I can get them. And I'm going to spray the front right wheel and the back left wheel with this stuff. I'll leave the front left and the back right wheels untouched. And then I'll go ahead and I'll drive the car around over the next couple of weeks or months or whatever it is. And then we'll just see. We'll do a little comparison and see how did the Armor All protected wheels hold up versus the unprotected wheels. Okay, so the first thing you have to know about putting this stuff on is that it's critical that you put a lot of it on. A lot of people just spray a thin coat and that just doesn't work. You've really got to go to town on this. So what I do is I start on the front, get all the front faces, and then I start on the sides, make sure I get all the side angles in there, and I'll get on the other side, and I'll get above, and then the hard part, get up underneath there. Got to make sure you get everything. And the other complaint people have is that you're going to end up going through about a third to half a bottle every time you do this, and it's not cheap. It's like $7 a bottle. All right, I've got a full coat of the Armor All Wheel Protectant on the front right wheel and the back left wheel. And one thing that I really want to point out is that the reason I'm doing this in a garage here as opposed to outside is because once you spray this stuff on, you don't want to move the car. You need to let it sit for at least an hour to let this stuff dry. And it says on the can that the longer you let it dry, the longer it's going to last. So I usually let it sit overnight before I take the car out again. So the car right now has about 8,011 miles on it. It is February 17th. So we're going to just watch and see how that wheel does versus that wheel over the next couple hundred miles in a couple of weeks or months. We'll see. So I've only taken the car out twice since I put the Armor All Wheel Protectant on the wheels, and I've done about 76 miles. But even in that limited amount of distance, the rear wheel, which didn't have any of the protectant on it, already has a pretty good coating of brake dust and road grime on it. I think under normal circumstances I would probably clean the wheels at this point, but since we're doing the test, I'm going to leave them in this state. Now the front wheel, which we did put the Armor All Protectant on, looks about as clean as the day that I sprayed it on. There's just a tiny bit of grime and some crevices, probably just areas where I missed, but overall this wheel is basically sparkling clean. The front left wheel, on the other hand, which did not get any of the Armor All Wheel Protectant, looks a lot dirtier. You can see road grime pretty much all over the thing. It looks a lot like the rear right wheel, which also didn't get any of the protectant on it. And finally, let's take a look at the rear left wheel, which did get the Armor All Wheel Protectant. As you can see, this one is also really, really clean. It's not quite as clean as the front right. We do have just a little bit of some spotting here and there, and that could have been caused by spraying too much of the protectant on in one spot, or I may have actually hit a little puddle on the road at one point. It splashed up a little bit of debris on there. But overall, the wheel still looks very clean. Well, I think I'm ready to put an end to our little experiment here because the rear wheel is pretty trashed out. It's got just a ton of brake dust and road grime all over it. I've put on a little over 200 miles at this point since we started the test, and I think I'm ready to clean this wheel again. So let's do our little comparison, see how this guy held up against the Armor All protected ones. And just like before, the front right wheel, which did get the Armor All Wheel Protectant, it's really, really clean. I mean, after 200 plus miles, you can hardly tell that it's been driven because there are just a few spots here and there where some debris did build up, but overall it's sparkling clean, and I can even do the finger test, wipe my finger on it, and there's just a light coating of brake dust on there. You know, we can just test anywhere and it's just minimal, absolutely minimal, stuff that will probably wash off with a spray of water, and I'll get to that in a minute. And of course, for comparison tests, we have to take a look at the front left wheel, which did not get the Armor All Wheel Protectant, and just like the rear right one, it is completely coated in brake dust and road grime. So it too is in serious need of a cleaning. And finally, let's take a look at the rear left wheel again. This one did get the Armor All Protectant on it, and as you can see, it still looks really clean. It's got some of the spotting that we saw at 76 miles on it, but really it hasn't gotten much dirtier since then. So I'm still guessing that these spots are just water droplets from a puddle that I may have run over. Overall though, this wheel is still really nice and does not need cleaning yet. Another interesting property of the Armor All Wheel Protectant is that when a wheel like this one here does get a little bit dirty with the water spots and just a thin layer of dust on it, usually a hose and water will just take that off and it'll return it back to new without you having to touch the wheel at all. The front wheel here, which didn't get it, and it's pretty coated with gunk, I'm willing to bet that when we spray that down, it doesn't change much. It's probably going to look just as dirty. But I'll be curious to see if this wheel back here does get cleaner with the hose and water. So let's find out. So here we go. We're going to try putting some water on and see what happens. There's a fair amount of black brake dust coming off from somewhere. All right, well that didn't take off the big spots that were on there. It may have taken off some of the smaller ones, or at least thinned them out a little bit. But it definitely did remove kind of that thin dust layer that was on there, because I can just see that the tire looks, or the wheel looks a lot cleaner. And you can also see that the water beads up on it, so it's definitely, you know, trying to repel all the grime even after 200 plus miles. So now we'll do that same test on the front left wheel, which is pretty trash. Now I can actually see, yeah, there was a little bit of grime that came off with that initial burst. Yeah, and actually, you know what? The water did take off quite a bit of that. Well, I'm actually pretty surprised by how much gunk just the water took off of this front left wheel. Don't get me wrong, it's not clean. There's still plenty of crap on the wheels here, and these water droplets are just going to dry up and create black spots everywhere because there's just so much on there. I would still have to go over this wheel with a rag. There's no way of getting around that. So yeah, spray of water will help, but it really doesn't compare to using the Armor All Wheel Protectant like we've seen on the other wheels. So bottom line, does the Armor All Wheel Protectant work? I'd say based on the results of this test, absolutely yes. We've got a really clean wheel up there, we've got a really clean wheel back there, and two really dirty unprotected wheels here and there. In my opinion, this stuff's a miracle product, because anything that can save me from having to clean these wheels once a week or every other time I take the car out is worth the $7 to me.